I'll open the regular session of the town council. I would like to say also, please forgive me, the alkali dust makes my throat a little gravelly, so please forgive that. One other thing, before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to add a item E to the new business. It's a request from AYSO for the Seroptimus Park use, if you'd add that as an item E.
Soccer.
First, soccer.
Well, you said it right.
Oh,
Youth soccer.
okay.
That's what it's.
Now, if you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm glad that pulled me off. Okay, no public hearing, we have public comment. I'd like to ask the audience, are most of you here on the air quality, to comment on the air quality by any chance, or any one of you? I'd like to, if you don't mind, well, since there's only one public comment, I'll go ahead and let you have your public comment. Okay.
Well, I just the comment is on if we, like I rent, and it's the stove issue, correct?
And what?
The stove issue.
Right, yes.
Well, it's like every other thing in my house is 50 years old, never been turned on. I would be afraid even to try to turn it on. So, since I rent, my landlord ain't gonna come over there and give me a new stove, so what are my options for all of that? I ain't gonna put a stove in someplace I'm renting.
Okay, I guess,
Name.
go ahead, yes, Raymond, go
What is
ahead.
his name?
Oh,
Your
yes,
name,
I'm
please?
sorry.
Roger Cox.
I guess when you know somebody, you forget to ask them
That's
to state
all right.
their name, so.
I've been around a couple days.
Okay, we'll take your comments under advisement when we do discuss it in the other part. I was gonna save comments till then if we had a whole bunch of them, since there's.
Well, I just didn't really understand it all. I wanna know what my options are. I mean, you know, I get pretty ornery when somebody comes up to my door and wants to give me a big ticket when I'm trying to stay warm. So.
We don't want you to get ornery. Okay.
Yeah, I know that.
All right. Are there any other comments and public comment?
Well, I don't know how the meeting runs, Mike. Well, I've got a petition from the north end of town that we'd like to move forward with the city or the state, whoever's responsible. We'd like a ban on engine braking coming down the hill there. And, you know, get it signed, posted out by where we're entering Lakeview and have it enforced. It's a nuisance. We don't seem to have any, people don't seem to have any compassion for their fellow citizens coming down that road.
It's also.
And maybe we should look at maybe reducing the speed limit that stretch of road to
Which road are you
25.
talking about again?
395
I'm sorry.
north,
Would
from
you-
the Don's Market
Okay,
down to the intersection with 4th Street.
and again, would you state your name?
Barry Gray.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Barry. Okay, we can't take action on a request like that. You do need to leave your petition with the town hall, with Mr. Sims, and we'll put it on the agenda, I believe, or in a discussion or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I discussed it with ODOT a little, because there's been some others that had, you know, that raised the same issue.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it for a year and nothing's getting done, so we're getting kind of tired of it. We've got at least two day sleepers up there, and they just don't need the racket during the daytime either, let alone at night. So we've got 36 individuals that signed this. That's not by no means everybody. We just couldn't catch up with everybody that we talked to earlier. We got two businesses, both the motels up there it's disturbing their guests. And while we're at it, we're thinking about if we have to, we'll get a petition together, but we think maybe we ought to be looking at a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit up there, at least from the corner at Don's Market down to 4th Street. We got a lot of kids up there on bicycles and stuff, and it's becoming a hazard.
And bus stops.
Okay.
Yep. And
If you'll leave your petition at town hall, and we'll
Well,
move from there. We are at town hall, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, Barry.
All right, I'm going to be out there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll go ahead and move into Communications, comment, and informational items. Any questions or comments from the council? Nothing? All right, we'll go ahead and move on into department reports. First is Chief Kemp. Chief's not here. Anybody from the police department? No? No. I just have a question, maybe Ray, if you could follow up with me on this. I noticed in the CAD report there was 6 animal complaints, and I'm wondering, is that domestic animals? Is that, wild animals like cougar sightings and deer, or does anybody know what that is? The reason I'm asking is I'm getting a lot of hits, I guess you would say, on Facebook and thing about dogs and animals and things like that, and I was just trying to track it through the CAD reports, so.
I would say generally, most of them are dog complaints.
Dog complaints.
But we'd have to look up each individual one to see if it was a cougar or a bear. We're having a bear issue down on the south end of town. And we had a big kitty cat issue up north of town. And usually those are also sent to ODF and W. So,
Okay, I'd like to maybe meet with you a little bit, Scott, sometime after, an informal thing.
and we'd have to go and look up each individual one to see that I would say 90% are
Domestic.
domestic animals.
Okay, thank you. As long as you're talking anyway, do you have anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add.
Okay,
Unless you have, I'm learning lots about computers and servers, and thanks for Chad at Goose Lake that's keeping us above water, but it's pretty amazing.
Chief Dennis, do you have anything to add to your report?
I have nothing further unless you have questions.
Nobody here from Anderson's? Mr. Wilkie?
We were waiting on a new street sweeper, we're gonna be waiting a little bit longer. Come to find out, so they've got to order it. So we're gonna try to get by, and hopefully the pickup belt on this old one will stay together long enough that we can get most of the needs picked up.
Okay. Mr. Sims, do you have anything to add?
Sure, I'll just follow up on what Ron was talking about. We just got notice to proceed from ODOT yesterday and Federal Highway Administration regarding the purchase of the sweeper using the CMAQ funds. We have today actually submitted a purchase order for the purchase of it, and it's about 120 days, give or take, out on it, so 3 to 4 months. 4 months, I guess, 120 days. But it is coming, it takes a long time. In addition to that, I don't believe I mentioned much, but I know some of you were at the geothermal celebration a week ago Friday down at the hospital. And I had a small but good crowd of folks, and had a nice tour of the facilities and a barbecue lunch, and so that all went over pretty well. I think that's it.
That's it?
I would answer questions.
I just have a question for Amy. When do air quality meetings start?
The meeting, November 1st is when it officially starts. Mr. Coggins is gonna be here the end of this month to kind of inform you when things are really gonna start going, so.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and move into the consent calendar, which consists of the work session minutes from September the 9th and the regular council meetings from September the 23rd. I just have a quick question for the council. Why'd they table the September 9th work session minutes?
I can answer that, if I may. Amy had sent them to me, and I had some corrections to make to the minutes, and I had not had time to get back to her with the corrections. And the council was also gonna pick up some of those issues that I'd seen, and and they just weren't ready, so they just tabled it.
Okay, not a big deal, so, okay. So, anyway, those two items, I'll accept the motion. If there's no comment or questions.
I just had a question on the updates of the, I'm trying to find it here. I noticed the fourth was updated in our last meeting, and that's why I wanted a clarification. Is the minutes reflected that we would be presented with the new ordinance for the medical marijuana dispensaries at the next meeting? Now this is 2 meetings. Do we have it today in our packet? I haven't seen it.
It's not there.
So we go meeting after meeting proclaiming the next meeting?
Now, let's see, we had a work session on the 9th, if I remember right.
Yes.
Right.
The following meeting, the end of the month, we would have had,
An update.
and that's why I asked for the clarification at that time in the minutes, where is it at, where's the ordinance? I recall John telling me that back in March, when we started working on the ordinance, that maybe 2 meetings, a month or 2, we should have it put to bed.
There is
are
an
in
update
October,
now. He did update it from the work session of the 9th.
but we never get to see it.
I guess I thought it, my mistake, we do have an
And
update.
I'd like for John to step forward and sometime give us what he said he'll do.
We will, that's one of the things I wanted to find out, if we're gonna schedule a work session, when we're gonna have the next work session on the ordinance, but I will get the ordinance out to everybody. I've got it. I thought it was in our last packet, but I'm mistaken, so.
Well, when I found out in the last, and I'll just make this comment right now, when I found out in our last work session, the September 9th work session, that there were those who were not willing to move forward, that they just as soon would ban it outright, then I walked out of the room, and I will not participate in the work session in regard to medicine in the medical marijuana form. I leave it up to you guys. I asked long ago that we follow the protocol of the state statutes. That was not done. And so, you know, after as much delay as we've gone through, I wish you guys success on coming up with that.
Well,
I guess I'll get to vote on it when we get to the council.
I don't know why it's not in the, well, I guess Ray said just oversight is why it's not
Well, nothing's been
in our
accomplished.
packet.
Nothing's been accomplished on it in all the work sessions we've had and all the time, all the money that's been spent and
Well,
drawing up maps and.
A little correction on that, I do believe that it was the consensus at the work session that we would change the church boundaries to 500 feet. There was one other item in there, I'm not exactly sure.
Well, I read
what
the
that
minutes
was.
and it said it was thrown out, I didn't know that was the full consensus. Someone made the comment, is that all you have to do is make a comment to get it to be a consensus?
Say that again, is what?
I'll bow out again, okay, right? I don't think we're gonna get anywhere until May the 1st of 2015.
Well,
500. What we wanted was the map that would show us, because remember, Mr. Bogart said the way
So
that
therefore,
the
it wasn't a
1,000.
consensus,
No,
so we
well,
shouldn't
there
proclaim
isn't.
it as such, Mayor.
Okay, well, we're
Anyway,
trying to,
it's-
okay,
I will forward the new ordinance that I have in my, that I have, and it's, I'm negligent in apparently not having got it out to everybody, but, the change that I recall that's in the ordinance now from the one that you had at the 9th meeting, September 9th meeting, is instead of 1,000 feet, I think, if I recall, the churches are still in there, but at 500 feet. There may have been another change, but that's the one change that I remember that's in there, and it's, again, it's got draft written across it, so in my opinion is that anything in an ordinance, as long as it's still draft, is open for debate.
I would like to get a copy if I could, and I would,
And I'll send
requested
it out
at the
to
last meeting, the audio of the September 9th workshop. I think I should be able to listen to that at least as a council member. I was not in attendance for the second part of it. I'd like to see what was discussed. And anyways, I would like for,
not a problem as far as I see on that. Back to the minutes on the 9th, on page 4 of those minutes, it says, Mr. Bogardus will update the medical marijuana ordinance by inserting 500 feet from the churches and present to the council at the next meeting. Granted, your point being that there is no presentation at the next meeting, but it does state that in the minutes,
So that was the consensus, and, okay, I'd just like to review
Okay,
the minutes of that meeting and see
okay.
what discussion.
So, that being said, we still need to approve the September 9th minutes and the September 23rd minutes. Anyone make a motion?
You may need to do them separately because several of you
Yeah.
weren't at the September 23rd meeting. So
I was only at the
Those three,
September
okay.
9th and not the other one, and same with you. So
Okay,
I would move that we approve the Lakeview Town Council work session meetings of September 9th, 2014.
is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Lakeview Town Council work session minutes from September the 9th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Now I need another motion, there was only 3 of you here, for the September 23rd minutes.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the council minutes for September 23rd as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
They have a motion and a second to approve council minutes from September the 23rd. Only 3 members were present, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Okay. And we will get you what you requested.
Thank you, Mayor.
And now, you had a comment?
I just wanted to say in that September 9th work session, the last I heard, you guys were gonna meet and come up with circles 250, 500, and 1,000 feet. That's the last that I heard. I hadn't heard any discussion on just 500 feet from churches, okay?
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and move into mayor council update. I attended the LOC conference in Eugene with Ray, it was towards the end of last month, I don't remember the exact dates now. Anyway, up on Thursday, I attended the mayor's workshop. I thought this was interesting. Sean O'Day, gave us an interesting talk on the new recreational marijuana law that will be voted on in the fall. Even if the recreational marijuana law is passed, each community can opt out of that by a vote of the citizens, so that it's still not allowed in your town, county, or whatever. There was a lot to it, I can't get it all in a quick synopsis here, but there will be an opt-out option available for communities if it passes in the state. So anyway, there's that just to kind of keep an eye on. That definitely would
Excuse
take
me,
a lot.
Mayor. Would that be done by a vote of the citizens of each
Vote of
county?
it, there's a
So
vote of
special
the
session?
citizens. I didn't finish
County
my.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The
I understood Mr. O'Day to say it could be communities. You know, whether that's a county, the town, the city, I don't know, that's why we take an interpretation by your legal counsel, but it's going to be a real headache regardless when they, and I'm pretty sure it will pass, talking to people up there, the way the feelings run in their individual towns and things. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. On Thursday afternoon, I went on a tour of the downtown Springfield area. On Fridays, we had the opening ceremonies with David Frohnmeyer. I attended work sessions on what happens in City Hall doesn't stay in City Hall. I did a really, really nice session that was about veterans and how they affect your community, pro and con. Creating revenue streams for cities. On Saturday, we had the city awards and membership meeting. I attended a session on working with youth. And then we had a very interesting lunchtime with 5 of the 6 gubernatorial candidates there, which was interesting, quite interesting as a matter of fact. I kind of wish, I don't know, I think you can maybe go on the LOC's website and see that, and it's kind of worth, it's about a 30-minute session, but it's kind of interesting to hear what those 5 gentlemen have to say. On Saturday was the, oh no, I'm still on Saturday. I attended a workshop on marijuana. It was called the Washington Experience. It tells a couple city councilors from the state of Washington that went over after their recreational and medical marijuana, some of the problems and some of the smooth things that went with it also. It was really an interesting talk. And then I attended the Small Cities Network, which was the end of my 4 days up there. The other thing that I've got going on is we're starting our 2014 Christmas season, and so we're starting up the Christmas committee and working on that. And my last thing is I would like to thank the office ladies and Ray. They did a really nice job of putting on the opening or the dedication ceremony for the geothermal. So I'll shut up. Sandy, it's your turn.
Well, I've been gone, so we have done nothing for the town for the last 3.5 weeks, so. But I do want to compliment the office girls also on their nice rearrangement of things. It does look very nice.
Sharon?
I got many comments about the outside of the building. I used to get comments of a totally different nature, you understand? And now everybody's saying, wow, that looks so great.
Stands out.
Yeah.
Stands out.
It looks good, it looks good, and it should make us all pretty proud of that and the work that they've done in here. The only meeting I should have attended was a council meeting, or a chamber meeting, and I came down with the flu after our last Tuesday meeting. And I've pretty much checked out for 2.5 weeks. So I will be up and running here soon. Well, I guess that's true of both of us. Anyway, not much other than volleyball team is in St. Mary's. Our football team is struggling, and the 49ers won last night.
Who cares?
Thank you. Michael?
The only thing I had to report is that I also went to the geothermal dedication, and even though I'm an employee of the hospital, I've never been around all of those areas. It was pretty interesting to see, and I was pleased at the expertise that the maintenance people have down there with all that's going on, and their the maintenance program that they have, so that things don't go south in the next 40 years while we're still paying for this.
This program.
It's a good thing, yeah.
We're talking the last time.
Also in attendance at the hospital at the geothermal ribbon cutting or dedication ceremony, and I would just say that with the USDA and those from the Governor's Solutions team who were in town for the occasion, their comments were very greatly appreciated by me. They're fond comments of our community and how nice we are working towards becoming a community that is not so reliable on fossil fuels and what have you. So it was a good deal there. The South Central Oregon Economic Development District is looking for a person, and I'm not sure if it's been filled, but I sat in on an interview with Betty in regards to someone for that position. And that's been a couple of weeks ago that interview took place. And then the Prison Advisory Committee is going to meet next Monday. I'll be in attendance with that meeting. And then tomorrow we have a meeting scheduled with Red Rock Biofuels on possible enterprise zone remedies to making the thing work for everyone involved. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, good luck with that. That's good. Thank you. Ray?
Yeah, Red Rock, Mike mentioned that. Again, we'll continue working on the enterprise zone issues there. Not sure but what, maybe at our next council meeting following this one, I guess it would be the 28th. We'll see how things progress tomorrow, but we may want to have kind of it won't be an executive session, but a check-in with the council about where we're at and what the issues are, if there are any still. Or maybe we'll be able to come back to you and say, hey, we figured it out. Here's the deal that, it doesn't seem to be going that way quite yet. But also with regards to Red Rock, of course, when you see the announcements in the paper, it looks like it's a done deal. They're ready to go down and start moving dirt and go to work. But aside from the enterprise zone issues, we're still, there's a whole host of permitting issues that have to happen, you know, between air quality permitting as well as all of the land use processes that have to take place. And then somewhere along in the midst of all that, it appears that annexation of the town of Lakeview
That's
is
what I was
also
gonna
an
ask.
issue that has to be addressed. So there's a lot of work to be done before I would say that it's a done deal. But you know, it certainly is an exciting possibility on the horizon for Lakeview. So the MC Chuck Wagon, you probably saw the stuff in the paper and the Herald News as well, that we won an Oregon Main Street Award for best cooperative project or something to that nature in the state of Oregon for last year. So that again was you know, another opportunity to kind of show off that particular project that we played some part in helping develop. Christmas, not only is the Christmas committee starting to meet, but I just would remind everybody, it's really not that far away, all right, already, is that December 1st, which is a Monday this year, will be the Christmas opening. So it's roughly 6 weeks away only already, so where's the time go? PAC, yes, and I guess I covered all of the things that I had.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, there is no old business, so we'll go ahead and move into new business. One question for the audience, is everybody here about ordinances? Is that pretty much why we're here? Okay. Just want to make sure that,
We just have a letter in there, we're just here to, just in case you go over the letter.
okay, that was in our informational items. There was no comments from the,
Okay, well, that's the only reason why we're here.
okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and go into new business, and our first item is ordinance 851, the air quality ordinance. So, Ray, I guess
Sure.
since Tom's not here, I'll let you go.
Well, I think the main comment I have is that this was on your agenda for the last meeting. However, because of the importance of the issue, there were a couple of folks here that we had some extended debate with as well, but because only 3 of the council was here, I think the determination was that it was best to be considered when you had a full council, or at least as much of a council as possible, knowing that it likely would be a full council at this meeting. And so the decision was to table, table consideration of the air quality ordinance until this meeting. And with that, I guess I don't have much more to say. You know, it's a more aggressive posture towards air quality management than we've had for a number of years. With regards to the comment that Mr. Cox made with regards to renters, there are going to be new programs coming next spring, beginning in March, or most likely beyond March. That March is when the funding will actually be approved by the legislature for wood stove changeouts. And this new program that will be coming will be available to rental properties as well, either landlords able to change out old stoves in rental properties, or even renters being able to as well. And you know, the details of that program, that $750,000 that's being made available, have not been developed yet. They're just beginning to develop those programs, the guidelines for the program, but there is going to be assistance available. What we really need to find out this winter is we need to know who those people are that have either a sole source or still have old wood stoves that need to be updated, because we want to get them on the list of places. You know, targeting sometimes it sounds like a bad term, but but in this case it's not. We want to know who the people are that need the help the most, so that we can, when the money is available, we can bring a program to you and others as well to help change out those wood stoves. Or in some cases, it may be not changing out an old wood stove to a new wood stove, but changing out an old wood stove to some other source of heat, so that we get away from the wood burning entirely. This ordinance phases out the exemptions for sole source heating next year. So this winter, you'll be able to use them if that's all you have to heat your home with. But between now and next year, and with much money coming available, there needs to be some changes made in those sole source homes. I don't really think there's that many of them, but there's some. This winter, you will not be able to use wood stoves as the source of heat on red days in commercial buildings in Lakeview. And there's a few of those out there that are using wood stoves. I assume they're not their only source of heat, but I don't know that for a fact. So, but this winter, commercial structures will not be able to use wood stoves on those red days.
So who and when do we give our information to?
To Christie here, I'm sorry, I didn't, Christie was the person that did the last one.
You can call Christine, give her your.
Yeah, you call Amy is the person that you need to get that information to. We need to make sure, and we need to encourage others also to get on the list. You know, that this $750,000, that looks to me like will do upwards of 200, maybe more than 200 change outs. Probably is more money than they'll be able to have enough contractors to get it all done next year is what I'm thinking. But you know, that'll be a good problem to have, I guess, in a sense. So,
You know, to answer your question exactly, in the ordinance,
Yeah, I read it.
did you read that section 3? Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, and picking up a copy of this does help explain some of it, but, you know, that does answer, the liability is not your liability, it's your landlord's, so, just wanted to make sure you was aware of that.
Well, I am, I
Yeah.
just also know that most homeowners, especially like mine, who, I'm not gonna mention who it is, but they have no interest in putting $3,000 or whatever it is. You know, they'd rather close the door. Say,
Well,
see you later.
yeah,
That's
My landlord don't need my money. But,
but
you know,
with
the other
this-
part of that is if it's available and all that stuff, I mean, I'm perfectly capable of changing it myself. I just can't afford to go buy the stove, so.
Right, there will be, as Mr. Sims mentioned, 750,000, is that kind of what we're looking at?
yes,
Is that-
it will be 750,000. That much for Lake County, Lakeview area, urban growth area, and also the Klamath Falls area. It's $1.5 million divided between the two, and it'll be available in March. Approved, you know, the bonds will be sold in March, so the money will be available sometime following that.
Should be some pretty good incentives for that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my question is, you said you don't know what the requirements are, and most of those programs have an income requirement for someone, I mean, if his landlord owns the place and his income is over what they require.
And this project is not going to have those.
Seems to be a lot more
Because we
lenient, it really
need to
does.
be able to.
Okay, well, that's my question, because most of them are, you know, based on,
Right.
on need rather than,
This is not HUD money and, or EPA money.
I know it's a new program, but
Yeah,
it's,
so
you said they were working on the requirements, so.
And the requirements that I'm thinking about is, will there be any kind of match requirements? Some of what we're going to want people to do is when they agree to take the money for a wood stove change out is, there's other programs that are going to be available that will help with insulation, replacing windows, doing other sealing of the houses in order to, once you get them warm, to keep them warm, try to keep the heat inside of them. And so there's other programs that we think we can close to double actually the amount of money that's available by doing all those other things.
Well, I believe they're going to put something in there too, that once they get this nice new stove in there, Roger's landlord can't raise your rent, so, you know, things of those natures.
He wouldn't do that anyway, but like I said, you know, in what she says is kind of true. He doesn't need the money,
Yeah,
but he's not gonna put it into a rental. He's just not gonna do
he won't
it.
mind using free money,
I mean, he has no incentive to do that.
yeah.
His incentive probably, like I said, would be to go, well, you can move.
Well, we don't want you to move.
I have a house set next to me that's been all totally redone, and there's notices all over it. They keep showing it to people, and nobody lives in it, and it's right by the school. It's crazy. It's been empty for almost a year. And pretty quick, it'll just be a dilapidated piece of crap, and right now it's a nice house. But nobody lives in it,
Yeah.
you know, so that's like craziness to me. And they're all over Lakeview like that.
Well, we're a bit depressed economy right now.
I know
so-
that.
Okay,
Mayor,
we gotta get back, yeah, oh, you had a question?
My actual question was actually on the requirements, because I am a homeowner with one source heat, wood stove. And we were on that list where we kept getting called, I kept talking to Christie, I kept talking to Audrey, you know, and, you know, so we didn't wanna pay all that money. When our wood stove works great, there's not that much smoke coming out of the chimney, except for when you first light it. And so that's what I was wondering, cause on our requirements for the homeowners,
Right.
you know, how that was gonna work, because every time it was a match, that would be, we'll give you this much if you match this much, because income wise, of course, we're not gonna qualify for anything, so
Right.
that was my
I
question.
think the people that truly are sole source, you know, you may be one of those.
Oh, we are. We've been in that house 15 years, it's one source.
So, you know, your interest is going to be in using the program to put in it to establish some kind of an alternative source, so that, because on those red days,
Then you won't be able to
starting
burn.
next year, not this winter, next year, you won't be able to burn that stove on a red day. We're not allowing, our ordinance as it's written at least, doesn't allow for sole source use, so you need to be using the program to create, you know, either install a heat pump or upgrade electricity so you can have some heaters, electric heaters, or something. But you need to have an alternative source.
So you would be able to keep your old stove if it meets whatever, but have a second source of heat, so you're not burning on those red days.
And that's what we want, is on those 8 or 10 days, usually last winter it was more like 25 or
Right.
30, but we don't want people burning on those red days.
Right.
And that's
The rest
even
of the
with the
time,
brand new
it
good
is-
stove.
Pardon?
That's even with the new stoves or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no wood burning
Red
period.
days.
On
No
red
wood
days,
burning.
no
On
wood.
a red day.
So even if you replaced one of the newer, better stoves, you're still not burning on red
Right.
days.
You still need an alternate heat
Right.
source.
Well, that answers my question there. Give her the information.
Council, was there any comment? I know Sandy, you had some comments about the ordinance, and, what were your questions or concerns or whatever? And-
Well, you know, I think, I was looking at this letter someone had written to us, and a couple of points in there about the, on page 3, on section 2C, he was commenting, and, you know, I guess, I don't know, it says, I mean, our stove, we put wood in, it lasts for like 8 hours, so it makes it really difficult to just end the fire when it's a red day, instead of, you know, even if you don't put any smoke in, or I mean, any wood in. And then the smoke emissions during a 10-minute startup period and 10 minutes after refueling are exempt. But limited every 4 hours, I guess that's a little confusing to me, that's all.
No, I agree, because our stove heats really, really well.
So does mine.
And
You
we
load
don't
up
have them
with
for
wood.
8 to 12 hours ever, so I didn't know how that was gonna work either. So,
Well, one thing it's the case in virtually everything we do, and that is there's very little that turns out to be when it comes down to it, it's black and white, you know, yes or no, absolutely the answer to thing. And so, you know, there's some of these things in 10-minute startup periods and all, there's gotta be some, you know, there's gotta be some logic that's applied by the people who are overseeing that as to what the circumstances are. You know, one of the reasons for changing to calling the day at noon is that, you know, that's, at that point in time, or a little before lunch, hopefully, you've got 5 or 6 hours, you know, if you won't rebuild the fire in the evening when you go home from work, if it's a red day, you know, and it's cold in the middle of the day. Now, you're still maybe you burn 8 or 12 hours, but, you know, when that evening inversion starts to set in again, at least you won't be stoking it up so that it's going to burn all night long. So, you know, I guess there's not a perfect answer probably.
Well, that's the worst time, because you're shutting your stove down, that's where you get most of the smoke, is if you shut it down. You know, if it's burning wide open, it don't usually have hard, mine don't smoke if I have it open, but at night, you don't leave your stove. I don't leave mine in there, it'll be the color of them booklet there.
Well, guys, you know, the ordinance, it would be impossible, and I don't think anybody would want to write an ordinance, it'd be as thick as our, you know, the, health plan. If we covered everything, so I think what this is, at least in my opinion, we've written the best ordinance we can. Like Mr. Sin says, you know, will we have to tweak some things later on, or find out that this just isn't working? Yeah, there's always a possibility of that. This isn't a punishment ordinance or something like that. The whole point of this is to clean up our air so we get better breathing in here on inversion days. So, you know, I think we've touched most of the problems on this. Is it, you know, set in concrete? Well, maybe until we amend the ordinance it is, but we can work with it and make a good ordinance. Well, actually, I think it is a good ordinance, but if it might need a little bit of tweaking, I think that's a real possibility. But, you know, what we need now is any other comments from the council. Do you see anything else that, right at this point, that needs to be changed or adjusted, or do you have any questions about it, like Sandy's question? But we do need to move on this, and if it's acceptable, get it passed. So, open it to the council.
Well, I'll tell you honestly, I'm not voting for it. I don't like the provision of walking into somebody's house and taking their stove away from them. I don't think there's anything in there. There are no clear guidelines of how that's going to be done. Now, maybe Mr. Cox knows how to put them up and take them down, but if we send 2 cops in there to take your stove out, there's no guarantee that you're not gonna have soot everywhere, and that we're gonna be in litigation over things like that.
What makes you
The
think
other
that we would,
thing-
excuse me, go
Well,
ahead.
but the other thing is, I started keeping track, and I think there were like 8 or 9 people who said, you come into my house and wanna take my stove, I'm meeting you with a gun. And that kind of, see? And one man said that if you try to take my mother's stove, I'll be there with a sawed-off shotgun, and I'm thinking, okay.
Well, we don't wanna breathe bad air and make other people breathe
I
it. We have
think if
good
you do
problems
that, you're gonna be in
and
more
stuff, too,
trouble
you know.
than a Class B violation,
You know.
but,
But on the same token, so some of us don't have the money to pay a $500 a month electric bill for turning on these flipping heaters.
I understand that.
And I think we all want good
Yeah.
air quality, I
I
honestly
think we
do,
want the air
so.
quality, but I don't
And
like
Sharon,
that.
with the scenario you just laid out, when you read this, that's the way you read that
Well,
somebody
but I
would-
don't think there's guidelines that keeps that from happening.
Why doesn't it? I mean, it says, in lieu of additional penalties, the town may, after notice and right to hearing, remove and destroy without legal liability or compensation to the owner, you know, any yada yada on that. But I mean, that's not sending in stormtroopers to rip out your stove.
You better have
I
flak
don't get
jackets on
that
from
from,
what I
from
hear.
the wording in this.
No, well, what doesn't say is that we will have qualified people come into your home to remove the stove so that we're doing the least amount of damage to your home. And I don't know that we can afford to hire somebody. We can't, if we're paying all those people to install stoves, they're gonna be busy, they're not gonna wanna uninstall a stove. I just don't think we can handle that part of it.
I agree with Sharon on that particular point, about just walking in and pulling the stove out of these.
Well, you're gonna
Not
run into a
ideal
lot of
of the
legal
way the
problems
Constitution
when you
works.
get the damage reports from all of it. Because you're talking about putting a hole in somebody's roof, 2 of them actually, most. Mine's a rather simple one, but most people's ain't. I mean, you're talking about tearing bricks out and,
Whatever
you know,
they've got it sitting on,
you're
just
gonna
put
have
that-
lawsuits from here to eternity.
In my discussions with John with regards to that part of our ordinance is that if we have to go to these extremes, there'll be, it will be appealed to you, a decision that we have to remove the stove. It's going to get appealed and heard as a public hearing by the town council. And
Yeah.
in that process, if that turns out to be that there is no other resolution except, to remove the wood stove at that point, that's what the council decides, if they did, then I would assume that that same discussion and decision is also going to describe how that removal is going to take place. I don't expect it to ever happen, but when you go into the ordinances and regulations and you've got those provisions, you have to know that could happen. And so there will be a hearing by the council, and during that process, you will decide whether or not the stove needs to be removed. And if it does, I would assume you would prescribe, how that is done. They will hire a contractor to come in on a certain day and take it out, and that they'll patch the roof and the things that have to be done in accordance with doing that. I don't think the intention is to just go in and hook onto it with a long chain and drag it out the door. That's an extent. That's not.
That may not
If you go on someone's property without their permission, that's trespass.
Mike, you had a comment?
There's a comment.
Go ahead. I just wanted to point out that we may be losing grasp of why we even have a new ordinance sitting before us. I think we had a good ordinance, and I think it's been modeled by other communities in our state, even of what we had as far as air quality. But this new ordinance is not something that any of us, I think, wanted to do. It's something that we're being made to do by Department of Environmental Quality and EPA. And the reason is for our economic well-being in our community. And we could give it up, we could just throw up our arms and not give it a try. We could tell people that on red days you can burn whatever you want to burn. You can go out and start a fire in your backyard, and we can have smoke going left and right, and don't care about our neighbors and friends breathing that kind of stuff either. But the truth of the matter is the reality of it, and why we're having to come up with a new ordinance. I think it's very well written. I think that we can adapt to it. We can work with the people, both in the new urban growth boundary. That's the main thing. It's inclusive of a new urban growth boundary that was never under our plan before. So it is going to be a concerted effort of our community of Lakeview, those that live right next to us in the urban growth boundary and those that live within our statute boundaries. So it's at least a chance for all of us to give it a try ourselves. If we can't make it work, then we're out of here. Our economic development is dependent on the industry. We have one, we're down to one sawmill. I've heard stories way before I got here. There were 5 or 6 of them operating full force. There's one, and that's all we've got. When it's gone, that's a big industry that we'll lose, and it depends on those air quality permits that it receives. And if they become too restraining on them, that's what we're working forward to make sure we can get through these next 5-year period on this new plan to make it work for all of us and to make it a better place for all of us to live.
I think those are excellent points you're raising. And I might just add to that is the county has, you have it in your packet that you read, they have a, not an identical ordinance, but a complementary ordinance to where it's enforceable not only in our town and our UVG, but also in the county, countywide, and not quite as, pardon?
It's a big step forward.
Yeah, it really is, and that just, amplifies your remarks, great remarks, thank you. Anybody else?
I didn't get, I must have missed it, because I saw nothing in the counties that dealt with anything except the urban growth boundary. They're not stepping out of their little area of comfort. They're mimicking ours, except 2 or 3 places where there's gonna be some problems, I think. They have a different class violation than we do. They have no restriction on the sole burning or the sole source of heat thing.
That's a new one that we put in.
Yeah, we put in, but they don't agree with it.
Well, they may,
And they may do what they usually do and
by
not
the
go along
end of
with
the
this.
year, they may decide to. That's what we
But
hope that they'll join in with.
I want to see the county come on board and be saying that, hey, all these ranches all the way around the town of Lakeview, which we get all that air, they're burning brush piles, they're burning trash, they're burning everything, and there's really no restrictions there except on the urban growth boundary, which may be extended to include that south end of town. But that's my other objection. I don't see that the county's on board with really committing to a solid course of action on air quality.
There were public hearings held on that regard, and they were held both the urban growth boundaries and the town of Lakeview,
But
and
nothing
outside
that they
in the
came up
outer
with
areas
says
as well.
that they're
Yeah.
gonna do anything.
The Department of Environmental Quality said they wouldn't impose that on them. So it's not something we have to oblige, or the county has to
No,
oblige.
they don't have to, but if they really want the economic growth in our county, they should.
I think what the county has done, it certainly helps on our UGB down on 9th Street when we run
That's
out of
where
the
we're
city
gonna notice
limits, and that's where our problem is. Our smoke is right here, you know, over the town, whether that's the town limits or the UGB or whatever, but the whole little community right here, so. Any other, yes, I had somebody in the audience, yes, sir. State your name, please.
Joe Steinberg. Talking about the wood stoves, you know, going in, taking them out of people's houses. How can you legally do that?
Well, right here in the ordinance, it states, you know, you have to have a hearing, you have to have a notice and a rights to a hearing from that. And our legal counsel says that, you know, apparently once that's done, then you can remove and destroy without liabilities. So, it would be probably a pretty in-depth legal process, I guess, but I mean, you know, again, the point of this is not to go in and, like a stormtrooper,
Yeah.
jerk out somebody's stove. It's to try to work out the best thing. That's the whole point of this $750,000 to replace stoves to start with, you know. We're trying to work as a community for better air for all of us, and this is an absolute very last stopgate measure, I guess, would be what that would be. I don't foresee it ever happening. Of course, anything can happen, but
True.
I wouldn't think that it would.
Well, are they also trying to get the natural gas?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're working the whole time. This is a 5-year plan, part of a 5-year plan to keep us from going out of compliance. And once we go out of compliance, it really does get nasty rule-wise like that. Just like Klamath Falls, our neighbors and to the west, you know, they have $750 fines. They have a lot of problem over there is because they were out of compliance. We're trying to not hit that with this 5-year plan, so that's what we're doing.
So with the natural gas, is that why they're trying to get rid of all the wood stoves?
No.
I would say in that regard to natural gas, I don't know that it'll ever be a reality. It's nice to have Ruby Pipeline running through as close to our community as it is, but it's a massive cost to get it to our infrastructure and to our residences in the community. I see that a long shot. I think that, you know, maybe before we get to that point, we'll be turning to our most valuable resource we have in Lakeview and Lake County, and that's our geothermal. And perhaps we can help homes such as yours where it doesn't cost anywhere near what it's costing you now with fossil fuels and natural gas from Wyoming or Colorado that's being piped in. Rather have it coming from right here.
Well, I agree with everything you guys have said, except on this, the issue
Okay.
of the stove. But I support the ordinance, but because I know the necessity of having it to protect the air and businesses here, so. I don't know.
Any other
It's just
discussion
one of
from the
those
council,
Mayor,
from the audience?
I would make a motion if we could approve it by title only.
By what?
By title only, ordinance 851, if we could approve it that way, I would make a motion that we do so.
Is there a second? Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve, or to read ordinance number 851 by title only.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Okay, I will now read the title. Ordinance number 851, an ordinance prohibiting the use of solid fuel burning devices within the town of Lakeview, providing certain exemptions therefrom, establishing controls for the enforcement of this ordinance, providing penalties for violations hereof, repealing ordinance number 748 in its entirety, and declaring an emergency. Okay, so that being done, I would now accept a motion to approve ordinance 851 after being read by.
I would make a motion to approve ordinance 851.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 851 after being
Red
read,
paper.
or having title read, I guess, yeah, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Nay.
We have 4 ayes and 1 nay. Motion passes. Okay? Thank you, audience, for your discussion too. That is appreciated.
Like I said, I'm with her on, I think, the west side and all the rest. There's a lot of people lives out there. A lot more than people realize. All you gotta do is look out there at nighttime and see
But, you
3,000
know,
lights strung out across there.
but we're working on it. We will improve our air quality, so thank you.
Well, we
all.
need to do that. That's it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move into resolution number 870. In the matter of approving a cooperative agreement between the town of Lakeview, the United States Department of Agricultural, Natural Resources Conservation Service for a Dead Man Bullard Dam assessment. Ray, would you like to?
I would, I think I tried to make it clear what was going on with this. If you recall back in, I believe it was in June, the council approved a letter that was sent to the USDA NRCS expressing our interest in receiving funds to do a Bullard Dam assessment. And as it turned out, right at the end of, towards the end of September, into the federal fiscal year, what it turns out to be, there was money available to do this project, and it was right after our last council meeting. And also, actually, it was while we were gone to the League of Oregon Cities Conference, and I spent a couple of hours up there missing some sessions, working on some things we were working on back here at home to help this happen. So, because we didn't have time to have a council meeting to accept the offer that USDA made of $30,000 to do this assessment, I went ahead and accepted it, pending the council's confirming that decision through a resolution at our council meeting today. So the purpose of this is to recognize that prior acceptance by me and authorizing the town to go forward with the project.
Okay, any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
When will they do this assessment? Do we have?
Actually, the kickoff meeting, assuming that you approve this today, is scheduled for next, the 23rd, whatever day.
Thursday.
Next Thursday.
I think.
I just say thanks for moving forward on it, Rick.
Well, yeah, I just
Yeah.
took it. I assumed that since we submitted a letter of interest, that we really didn't want to accept it if it was offered.
I move we approve resolution number 870 in the matter of approving a cooperative agreement between the town of Lakeview and the United States Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources Conservation Service for a Deadman Bullard Dam assessment.
Is there a second?
I would second.
Have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 870 in the matter of approving a cooperative agreement between the town of Lakeview, the United States Department of Agriculture, Natural Resources Conservation Service for a Dead Man Bullard Dam assessment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Our next is resolution number 871. In a matter approving a section 3 plan to comply 24 CFR Part 135 of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968, Section 3. I'm guessing that's why you ladies are here.
We're just here.
You're just here? Okay.
They're wondering what it's all about like we are.
Yeah,
It's one of those
This
federal requirements that in order to receive the HUD funds for the Community Development Block Grant for the new Head Start facilities, that we have to have what's called a Section 3 plan. And what this essentially does is alerts contractors whom are going to do the work. We won't have our own employees working at this, that if they hire employees when they come to Lakeview to do the work that they're going to do there, that they will make every effort to hire equally, whether it's race, gender,
All those other things.
all of those things that are protected class, that we will fairly and equally
hire based upon all of the standards, and so that's what a section 3 plan is. It says how that will happen. It also included is the various forms that will be filled out in order to establish who the section 3 people are and the effort that was made. So it's busy work for somebody.
One question,
Probably this will never be an issue for this project for us. Contractors probably will, if they come from out of town, will already have their employees. They won't be hiring them when they're here, and all of this will be for naught, but we still have to have a plan.
Federal bureaucratic process.
yes, that you
John.
hit the nail on the head. Is
Yes.
there any other discussion from the council? I'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve resolution number 871 in the matter of approving a section 3 plan to comply 24 CFR Part 135 of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968, section 3.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 871 in the matter of approving a section 3 plan to comply 24 CFR Part 135 of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968, section 3. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Okay, we still have another item, item D. November the 11th, our next town council meeting is Veterans Day.
Actually, it's not the next one, it's the first meeting in November. You have a
Oh,
meeting on the 28th.
Thank you, I misspoke on that.
But
So-
Veterans Day, the 11th, Tuesday would be your first council meeting in November. And so I guess my question, your bylaws require you to have one meeting in each month. You will have a meeting Tuesday, it's actually the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, as it would be your second scheduled meeting for November, and there would be no problem that I can see, at least of having that meeting. So do you want to cancel the 11th entirely, or do you want to reschedule the 11th for another day and have two meetings in November?
How does the docket look?
At this point, Mike, I don't have anything. I think you will have several more of these CDBG things, these plans that we have to do for your October 28th meeting. But beyond that, then I don't have a host of stuff.
If anything comes up, then you would call a special
We
meeting.
could have a special
If that
meeting.
happens.
I'd like to recommend that we just cancel the meeting, and if something has to be a special, we can do that. But the only thing that might sway that, will we have a quorum the week of Thanksgiving?
Well, I was gonna suggest the possibility of having that meeting a week early, but that's up to everyone to decide.
I'll be here Thanksgiving week. Well, as long as we have a quorum, I think we'd be
Okay, go
okay.
ahead.
Okay, I need a motion to cancel the November 11th meeting then.
Well, I, as a veteran, don't think that the majority of veterans would have a problem with us doing a public service on Veterans Day. I see no reason to not have the meeting.
To have the meeting?
Is that
We-
there's a deal with the schools so that they have conferences, and they've made a deal where they get that next week off, and maybe that doesn't affect us, but it might affect other people who wanted to come and say something, because that is usually a 4-day weekend.
Thanksgiving.
The only thing with your suggestion, Michael, is our staff, it's a vacation day for them, and in order to have staff in here for department reports and Amy to be in here for recorder, we're time and a half on those employees to do that. I agree with you as far as what you said, but that's the reason for that.
Then I suggest that we have the meeting closed that day because of the fact that it's a town holiday. Rather than the fact
Then the fact that it's.
That it's Veterans Day is
Yeah,
not the important thing, it
I
is
think
because
that's-
it's a holiday.
Okay,
We certainly base it on that, that's a good idea.
okay.
I don't have a problem meeting that day either.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
wouldn't
whatever.
either, except for we have no staff.
I don't, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. I'd accept the motion then.
go ahead.
I make a motion that we not have the town council meeting on the 11th of November, secondary to the fact that it is a town holiday.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to cancel the town council meeting on Veterans Day, November the 11th. 2014. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. We have one more new item on the agenda, which is the AYSO Region 1426. They would like to use the Seroptimus Park. And I asked Mr. Sims to, well, go ahead and tell him, Ray,
Okay.
to check out the rules from the Seroptimus.
As you know, we don't own Seroptimus Park, we lease it from Pacific Power and Light, but in my review of our lease with Pacific Power and Light, it says the purpose and use of the facility, leasee shall use the premises to operate and maintain a park and recreation area. I think soccer is probably a recreation area, including play equipment, trails, paths, landscaping, restrooms, and related facilities. And what we have is, you know, and I heard about this a while back, and then Amy came just yesterday, or called me regarding this, and they're short of soccer fields to practice on for little kids. And they're down at the Seroptimus Park. There's a big infield, the track paths, you know, go around. Seems to be a logical place. She said they're not going to put up permanent goals or whatever. If they need goals, they'll bring something for the day and then they'll take it away. But there probably won't even be any. Mostly a place for kids to run around and kick a soccer ball. My thinking is that we should approve this for this year, but consider maybe entering into a more formal agreement if they need to continue to do this year after year after year as a permanent use. But,
I believe her letter, you know, they're over October 25 this year, but they would like to use them in future sessions, so I agree with, you know, take Ray's recommendation. I think it would hurt us not at all to approve them to finish out this year, this season, and then we enter into, one of the things Ray brought up is on their liability insurance, it says Seroptimus Park. We'd rather it read Town of Lakeview Seroptimus Park, some things like that, so we need to tweak it a little bit, but I see nothing wrong along with Mr. Sims and approving it for the rest of this season. And if the council agrees, I'd accept the motion.
She just asked me if there was grass. I said, half of the whole area is watered and mowed on a regular basis, and then the other half of where the track goes around is not watered, but the grassy part would be.
yeah, and if we're done watering for this year.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
tomorrow.
probably not gonna.
And it's in pretty good
grass.
shape.
Yeah, right.
It's in pretty good shape, not susceptible to tripping.
The sprinkler system?
No, I mean the turf itself. I mean, if we send somebody out there to play on it, they're gonna probably want it to be pretty level and.
And
Well-
it's relatively level,
It's
it's
level.
pretty tough
I
to
don't-
do kind of grass, it's not.
I don't know how
Okay.
bumpy it is. I just walk on the track.
You know, that'd probably be the thing they'll have to watch out for, is where the dogs have also been.
Well, boy, you're talking about the exercise.
Yes.
Yeah, the dog thing
People
will be a
walk
big.
their dogs down there, mostly, but it's not that, actually not that busy. I walk down there pretty often or go by it and it's
Need a
fine.
motion.
Okay. I move that we approve the AYSO Region 1, number 1426, using this Seroptimus Park for Town of Lakeview Seroptimus Park, excuse me. The rest of this season for soccer practice.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the AYSO to use the Town of Lakeview Seroptimus Park for the remainder of this soccer season. All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries unanimous.
Mayor, before you close out, can I make a comment or two in
Certainly.
regards to something? I had asked for some direction through our town manager for what we might be looking at it in regards to the recreational pot tax. I know other communities, other counties in our state have done so. I think as the initiative is written, I don't think they're gonna be successful in doing that. They'll probably end up in court for a good while with this, as some of the things that Mr. O'Day from the Yellow Sea has led us down to the last year on medicinal marijuana. But I just want to make sure that, you know, I heard all of us at one point or another, if recreational pot ever came into being, we didn't want to let it get by without taxing it. There are taxes that will come back to our community through the initiative. I do not see, as you had stated, Mr. O'Day told you and assured you, I will read the initiative, but I don't see the opt-out for communities or counties. It was that way in Colorado, but in the initiative here, as it's written, I don't believe there is an opt-out for any locations in the state. So, I just, before we get to the point, it has to be, if you want to tax, it has to be done before the initiative is voted on November the 4th. And so I didn't ever hear any direction back from our town council or attorney in regards to that, so he must not feel that it's too advantageous to jump on that in regards to that either. So I just wanted to ask that question and get a clarification.
I could answer part of it, I can tell you what he told me.
Okay.
And also, I guess I'd share a little bit of what I learned at the League of Oregon Cities as well. But the measure is written, it says that the state of Oregon can tax medical marijuana, and that, or not medical, recreational marijuana, and that they have the exclusive right to tax it. It's kind of like liquor and tobacco and those things. And the advice, Mr. Bogardus's advice was, he didn't believe a couple things. First of all, if we imposed the tax, that it would be found to be inappropriate because the state has preemption on taxing in this instance because of the law itself. Secondly, how do you, it's kind of a dilemma, is how do you, as a council, approve a tax on something that today is illegal? That if it ever does become legal, it's taxed. I mean, there's a conundrum there that just doesn't quite add up. It appears that, so that was John's thing. The third thing that Mr. Bogardus brought, or another thing Mr. Bogardus brought up is when we sign, we take USDA money for Bullard Canyon, and when we do the USDA loan for the geothermal and all these things, we agree to uphold the laws of the local, state, and federal laws. And it's not, there's not a decision about this, I guess, but what is the ramification to a city if you accept federal money, but on the other hand, you're taxing what in federalized at least still is an illegal substance. So how do you do that? Even if the legislation passes in Oregon, if the state wants to tax it, their business, but can you as a local entity accepting federal funds and agreeing to uphold the laws, can you really tax it? And so it opens up a whole host of things that probably is best left to them. Mike brought up something when he and I were talking about it on the way to Salem and back, I think also, and that is, for the amount of money we're talking about here, probably do we really want to be in the tax collection business? I know the county has a tough time doing that with regards to hotel taxes.
I think the state is, once again, just like they do the medicinal marijuana plan, they've got a plan in action, and if it's voted on by our voters, we should abide by it, and just like we should have in the medicinal marijuana area. But we're still playing games there, and I just wonder where we're at on this other, because it is a do now. We've only got one more meeting left before the vote, and it's been told by many, both the League of Oregon Cities attorneys who are counseling communities across the state, that you've got to do it now or not. And I just wanted to see what the council's position was. It's the last chance to do it.
My information, and there was a survey done that came out yesterday, that there's about 25 cities in Oregon that as of yesterday either are considering or have already adopted a tax of some kind or other. That's 10% or so of all the cities across the state of Oregon. So it's not like everybody's jumping on board.
And then they have to fight the battle to really get it.
And they may have to.
So they can spend that money.
If I could, I want some clarification, I guess, too, with regards to this whole subject and thinking back to the medical marijuana ordinance that we're working on that Mike's not gonna have anything to do with. But aside from that, it's your meeting on the 9th. We agreed to, or you directed us, I guess, to change the ordinance, and as I recall, and that's what the ordinance reflects, 500 feet from churches. And that was done, and there may have been one other change, but I'm not sure. And I've got that, and I'll send it out. And you also, at that time, I think the comment was, well, we'll have it for the next meeting. I guess I took that to mean for the next work session, because we haven't continued work sessions, and yet we didn't schedule a work session. We've been having them at the first meeting of each month, but we really didn't say at that time that we would have a work session today, which is the first meeting of the month. So that's part of why there's not an ordinance out there. So when do you want to have the next work session, council, with regards to this? We're not having a meeting on the 11th. Do you want to have one on the 28th of this month, or do you want to wait until the meeting just before Thanksgiving? Give me some direction.
Thank
I'll
you.
do whatever you want.
Thank you.
I know Mike doesn't like delay on this, so rather than go to the second meeting in November, I would favor, let's go ahead and have a work session. Mike, you may be excused. A work session on the, what is it, 20?
It's the 28th.
On the 28th. What, a half hour?
Well, a half hour, and Mike and I, after our discussions with Red Rock, I'm not sure if we'll want to do a work session, executive session, or if we'll want to maybe do it in your
Well, why
regular
don't you
session.
determine that and then.
But we'll set aside a half hour for this, and then
For
we'll
this,
determine
for
whether
that,
we need
medical
more. Okay.
marijuana, and then go
So
from
we'll
there.
plan on 3:30 on the 28th, work session with regards to the marijuana ordinance.
Yeah.
And if we need to add more, we will.
When will you get that to us? Then, or?
No, I will scan and I'll send an email out tomorrow to all of you.
Can you put a copy in the box?
I can put a copy in the box.
I'd like to have something in front of me.
And
Yeah,
I
me too.
like to mark on it and.
Michael?
Yeah, concerning the comments that you made about this 500 feet, I remembered from the meeting that we were going to have something that showed the 500
That's
feet,
what I
and that we were going to look at that. That was
See
not
what
something
that-
that
how
we,
that
yeah,
changed
to
it.
see how that
It wasn't
changed
just-
things.
John told us that if we passed something that seemed to be unfair or punitive, you know, like, okay, you can't have this, well, that means in our entire town, you can't have one.
The
That we
ordinance,
would be, you know,
Challenge,
very guilty there and they could come against us.
the ordinance still says say draft, so as I said earlier,
Yeah,
some of my
But I
comments
think
are,
that was what we decided.
they're always subject
Let's
to
see
change. But
what
Amy
500
did do another
does.
map that's got the 500
Yeah.
feet on it, so we've got
And
that for you guys.
what about the change in the personnel that works for the dispensary?
That was-
I think that may have been the other change.
That is the other
That
thing.
is the other
Both,
change.
both
Because, I
employees
mean,
and
if I have
owners
to
have
have
the
a
same
background
stuff.
check and
Yeah.
fingerprinted
That was it.
and a drug test, if I want to be a volunteer down at the mentor program,
Yeah.
yeah,
That is the other change that was put in there, Sharon. is
Okay,
a
that was
background
the
check
one
for
I
employees
was
and
concerned
owners
about.
Right, that was the, I remember that also.
Okay.
So I'll get that
So
in
you'll
the
get
box
us
and out
a
to you tomorrow.
scan and a copy of, is it a color breakdown map?
Oh, the map we don't have in a scannable, it's a.
Oh, it's a
pretty
pretty
big, yes. But we certainly welcome to look at it.
Okay. All right, any other discussion of the
The
council?
map, you might, if you want to see the map, in the meantime, you'll need to come in and look at it. It's too big to scan.
All right, I will close the meeting at 5:17.
And who is this?